Alright, so the gate. This is the Build-A-Gate double kit. Came with everything you see here. And so I just built this, and that was my last video. And here's the thing. I explained in the last one too. But, you know, this Build-A-Gate kit is sort of more designed for like a wood application. That wouldn't be so beautified, I'm going to say. So this would go right here on the surface. And that would be okay. But by the time I were to land this on the surface and land it in that hinge, that would be flush. But then if I'm going to add, you know, some fence boards or vinyl, that stuff's going to stick out. And it wouldn't be terrible. Honestly, it would just stick out the width of the material. So 5/8 of an inch or 3/4 of an inch or so. And it'd be all right. But because this, you know, this stone face, I put so much effort into making the stone face plumb and level and matching and everything. I don't really want this hanging on the face of this. So what I'm going to do, I've already got it back there. I got some 1-inch square stock. And interestingly, what I actually took it from, this side of the Build-A-Gate and this side of the Build-A-Gate are joined by a little female piece, I guess male piece, whatever. There's a little intermediate piece to make it so that you can adjust it. It's adjustable from like 60 to, I don't remember, 100 inches or something. But because I'm closer to the 60, in fact, I'm under 60, I just went ahead and I cut 2 of these in half. So I'm using a half length here and a half length here, and I pulled the remaining full length. Boom. I'm gonna land that on the end. Same thing over here. So right now I just got it kind of mocked up. I got my little shims because my ground is sloping here, and I'm not gonna have this follow the slope. I'm gonna have this true square and plumb. So kind of the weird thing about this is to get it so I can set it back, you know, 4 inches. If I were to use this bracket, like even if I were to cut the face of it off and still try to use this bracket somehow, it doesn't have enough of an offset. So when you swing the gate open, the actual metal hits the rock before it can even come to like a full open. You know, it'll be kind of tapered in. And by the time that, you know, 5-foot long gate is tapered in a little bit, I don't think I'm going to be leaving the trash company enough room. So I want to be able to get this thing all of 90 degrees open. So to do that, what I came up with is, if I put this 1 inch and then I cut this bracket and I mount the bracket on the 1 inch, that's going to get my hinge out about 2.5 inches, and that'll make it so that I can bring it in and it'll still be able to open all the way up. Whereas the only way to do that before was to full on surface mount it, and that's the design. You surface mount it, so actually if it was surface mounted, I could bring it way open, like almost wide open. And that would be fine, actually. It's not a bad idea. It's just, man, I put so much work into the rock. I want to come up the road like this, not even seeing any of the vinyl, you know, or the wood or whatever. I just want to see the rock until I get more to the side of it. So here's where I got the idea. I'm not a fence guy. I'm an auto guy. So, you know, some mechanical ability, but not the experience for this level. I was looking at this gate, and because this gate's landed right in the middle of the column, obviously, if that's what I'm trying to do, I can duplicate it. So see what they did, similar. I think it's over 1 inch, but they've got the tubing, you know, the 1 inch or the 1.25 or whatever it is stock, and then they've got the hinge welded to it, and then they've got this hinge welded to that one. So that way this gate can open all the way 90, and the metal with the hinge end up not looking bad. You know, it looks exactly how it should. The only thing is, I was going to use Tapcon screws, but being that I'm going to mount a full rail, I'm going to drill holes and put all thread or like a stainless steel threaded rod in and epoxy it in and let it dry, and then I'll put nuts and washers on to bolt it up, and then I'll get these little plugs. So I'm kind of copying what the original gate people did here. So it'll be same side to side, and that means I'm gonna cut this and land it on its location which that's the Build-A-Gate kit right there. And in there it calls out for the center this gate, and then mount the hinge up 16 inches, and then mount the other hinge 16 inches below center. So I'm just going to weld them right on this square stock. Boom. 16 from the midpoint and 16 down from the midpoint. And then these are adjustable. So overall, for 300 bucks, the Build-A-Gate kit was good, but I'm not going to be able to use all the aspects of it. I guess I'll use most of it. I'll pretty much use all of it, but I'm going to have to modify it. I'm going to cut in weld and stuff because I'm just looking for a higher quality outcome than the quick one. And they do make this Build-A-Gate kit for vinyl, but it was like a year back ordered. So forget that. I'm going to make this work. So undecided as to wood or vinyl. I'm really leaning towards the vinyl because if I do all this in the steel, it's powder coated. When I'm done welding, I'm going to Rust-Oleum it. And if I put up vinyl, this should probably be at a minimum 10 years or more maintenance free. So that's why I'm kind of trying to steer away from the wood. But that's my mock-up. And what I did make sure, this kind of slopes downhill this way, but it also kind of comes up uphill because of the road crown. So I got them lifted up plenty where the whole frame will swing wide open. And then once I have it mounted, I'll swing the frame wide open, and on the very end, I'll land we'll call it vinyl, so that it'll be maybe an inch off the ground. And then I'll pull it closed, and I'll just, so I'll start with the middle one that has to make the clearance, and then I'll set them all the same. So it'll be, it will be level. They'll all be as high as they need to be to clear this blacktop. And I want to give it an extra inch just in case 5 years from now this gets another coat of blacktop added. I don't want it to interfere with the gate, so I'll leave plenty of room. I expect a few inches of clearance on the bottom, which will be maybe not as pretty, but I think it'll still look pretty good. So we'll see how this baby goes. Alright, here's what the next stage of this looks like. So I got the square stock here, I've got the brackets. I just made a quick mark where I'm going to cut it off. So all 4 hinges are going to be cut off and they end up looking more like that. So I'm doing the cutting with my just basic grinder, and this grinder with a thin disc cutoff wheel is working good. The grinder's seen better days. It's a cheapie. So I'm just going to make a cut real quick right on that line. Alright, so there's the cut. The next step, I've got to land this where it's going to go. And I have marks. So, using these couple marks right here. Hard to see. I'm going to use those lines to indicate it, and then I'm going to go around and grind off the weld area. Alright, so like this is what it'll end up, zoom. Got my line right there. Man, tough lighting. There, now you can see my line. Now based on my line, do a quick little buzz up. So you can see this square stock is not perfectly square. So I'm not really trying to grind it square. I'm just trying to get the paint that I need off. And then same, can move it over to here. And I really prefer the air die grinder to the electric grinder. Lighter, I think it's smoother. Okay, so now I pretty much got it prepped. Now I'm gonna clamp it into place. Alright, so I'm not making a big thing, I can get vice grips and magnets and all kinds of crap, but I'm really actually just using the ground clamp, which has got a good metal contact. I got my welding shield on, and I'm just gonna tack a few spots here. little corner spot. In fact, right there it's got a little gap, so I'm going to close that up. So with that closed up, just let me catch a little corner here, making sure it's going to be held. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Alright, so here on the other side now, same thing. Okay. So now that I've got it tacked, I can get the vice grips and everything out of here. And I'm not a professional welder by any stretch of the imagination. But the way I'm going to do it, I think will be pretty doable for like a homeowner. This is actually not mine. I'm going to get a welder, but I just borrowed this one. This isn't or anything. The flux wire's a little dirty. Like it's a little smoky. But for me, it's all right. And, until I get a nicer welder, that's what I'm going to be doing. And again, I'm not trying to do show stuff. I'm just making a gate for a stinking dumpster. All right, extremely bad lighting for this. But what I'm doing, all the stuff I welded, I'm going through with a little wire brush and just cleaning it up. So because this is flux core, more than likely it'll leave some slag and all kinds of stuff. So trying to save a little time, using this little wire brush and a drill, not making a really big thing about it. And then I'm going to spray these all off with like brake clean or wipe them down with lacquer thinner type of thing. And I'm going to get Rust-Oleum on these like right away. Also, because I got it a little hot, kind of the paint burned in a few spots. So this wire brush is really going to help to get any of that loose paint off. And I'm not trying to go crazy, but the more I clean this, probably the longer lasting the paint will be. I'm looking to do this job one time. A real wire brush probably going to be better right now. All right, then next, I got this, it's brake clean. It's definitely going to take any oils off. And just the fact that it's aerosol, and I'm looking to knock this out quick. You can see the sun's getting pretty low. I need to go pick up a couple things before it gets dark here. So I'm just dousing everything. Kind of kill off any of the oils, prevent fish eyes on this paint. And now I'm just going to wipe it down with some brand new paper towels. All right, moving along. So I'm coming through now and doing some Scotch-Brite. Just getting everything scuffed up because I'm going to paint the whole section. So any of this paint that's still a little glossy, I need to scuff up. Same with, over here, surrounding areas. And then my next step is I'm going to rinse this down with acetone, and then my next step after that is I'm going to mix my Rust-Oleum gloss black enamel with 50% acetone, 1-to-1 mix, and I'm going to put it in a spray gun and shoot it. This is like, when you buy Rust-Oleum and you mix it like that, it's super, super cheap. Even a spray can would be fairly inexpensive. A spray can be like $6, and I can do 100 spray cans out of that one. So that's going to be my plan. It's all prepped and cleaned. Gun's all ready to go. So check this out. And this has got a nice hammered type of powder coat. I won't be able to duplicate that, but I'll get to look decent. All right, so check this out. Going pretty light here. And if I spray it pretty light, a lot of coats, it does kind of run in with that powder coat hammer finish. So that's my plan. I'm going to purposely spray it orange peely. Which is going to slow it down because it's going to be more coats. That's all right. Man, tough to get the light. All right, I'll paint it. Next thing, I got to get this vinyl fence section out because I'm actually going to cut this bottom lip off and cut this to length. So I've done my measurements. It's going to be tapered, and I'm going to basically cut all these apart. I have to take 2 planks out, and I have to cut the whole thing at an angle, and then I'm going to put this back on with the special vinyl adhesive. Like I said, next part of the project is this vinyl. So I did all my measurements, like I was saying, and the complex part of doing this double gate is the way that the ground comes uphill. So I had to do some measurements as to how high I have to keep it off the ground, and I got that number. And then I'm obviously going to have these 2 level, and I'm going to have them meet at the same level in the middle. So it was a little bit funny. When I'm down there, I think I'll be able to explain it better. So the next step, I'm going to leave the top as is. And to get that bottom elevation right, I had to make some marks, and then I cut across all the panels like this. I found to cut this stuff was really easy with actually the same thing, circular saw with a diamond blade. It's kind of like equivalent of a very fine wood blade. Cut pretty easy. But the next complication is, as you can see, like this piece I already removed. I'm not going to leave these lowers flimsy like that. It's just, you can see it's super flimsy. So I'm cutting that bottom U channel off, like, so that's for this other piece. I haven't cut it off yet. It's vinyl cemented in. So now that I got a little experience, I can show you what I'm doing. I'm just taking my razor blade like this. So I'm going to lay this down in a good work spot. And I'm just, let's say I start with this one. I'm just kind of burying the razor blade in there and cutting it like this towards myself, exactly where I have the phone right now. So you kind of switch it up. I'm telling you, videotaping makes it awkward. It really does. Let's see if I can get one loose here with one hand. So I'm kind of moving it back and forth. And then start to pry it out. That one was fairly easy, but you can see it left a little piece down in there. So I'm going to go through and cut that last bit out. All right, next day, try to get these frames all straight. So I got remember that measurement, 2 1/4 down there. So I've got both this piece and this piece marked, and I grind the paint off, and then this is that center piece that kind of slides in there. So I guess if I didn't start with a kit, I probably would have done this crossbar solid, but because this is what I started with the Build-A-Gate kit, this is how I'm going to do it. So I got both of them set. They're both set to 2 1/4 right now, and ready to start welding. And you know, these are going to be a little tough because there's a gap. So it's going to take some patience of letting it cool a little bit and building this up rather than burning through the tubing. So I'm actually going to put PPE on this time because I'm going to spend a little more time on this. And it's time to get my helpers out of here because I don't want you breathing this yucky stuff. PPE, the PPE. Okay, come on. All right, so moving on to cleaning these welds up. Gonna grind them, same as last time. Grind them, wire brush them, Scotch-Brite them, clean them with alcohol or lacquer thinner or acetone or whatever, and then set this one aside, do the same to that one, and then mix up the Rust-Oleum and shoot them. That way these can start drying because that Rust-Oleum dries pretty slow. Then I'm gonna move on to cutting those to that level that I marked and measured, and then I'll set the bottom on epoxy, and then I'm gonna go get this roto hammer. Just like the last one, I pull out these center bars. I'm marking at 2 1/4 wide, right in the center of the bar. Get ready to grind those, and then same, gonna grind all these surfaces, this one, here, 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 the bottom, all these. And then when I grind those, you know, I'll make sure I'm right in that. I'll do a little bit onto the side that'll be in the tube, but most of it'll be out here exposed, a little tiny bit in the tube. And then I'll reassemble them, set the gap once again to 2 1/4, weld them up. All right, so let's see if I can jump this gap here. It's a small gap, admittedly. Let me do from that length. One hand. Just gonna shoot one on the bottom. Then kind of bridge it to the top. A little more. All right, so it's starting to cool down. All right, time to do a quick paint. So you can see, got them prepped, cleaned up. I'm just gonna spray them one more time with I'm using brake cleaner. I'm gonna shoot them one more time, mix the stuff up, and just spot them. It's not gonna be that big of a thing. It's just here, 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 here. So should be minimal amount of paint. All right, all painted. All right, time to get the party started here. Weather's decent right now, but it's been less than ideal. Yesterday was really nice. So I got this once again hung up now with everything all welded. I'm gonna do my drill holes right now with the roto hammer at 5, and I'm doing this just based on trying to get really into these nice solid rocks. So at 5 inches, 16 inches, and 24 inches, and 32, I think I came up with. 32 and a half, we'll call it. Actually, no, not that. It's going to be down here at 37. So the real reason is, I'm going to pull the tape real quick. At those points, it's most close to the rock. I can't do it right here where the hinge is. I'm not going to put a hole there, but I'm kind of trying to land it where it's pretty close to the rock face. Rather than having a stud where it's, you know, I'm going to have to stack it up with washers. I'm just going to hit those high points. Hole here, and then I'm going to set, I actually went to get some bigger threaded rod, but stinking Home Depot. I was going to do 3/8. Home Depot had no zinc plated nuts for 3/8. They had 3, and I need more than that. So I'm going to do a 5/16 threaded rod. So I calculated what size holes I need to do based on the nut, and then so the hole that's actually going to go through the metal will be just slightly larger than the 5/16. That's what this threaded rod is. But the hole that's going to be here has to be able to fit the socket. So I grabbed my 1/2 inch socket. 1/2 inch is what's going to fit the nut size. And I just measured what size outside diameter this 1/2 inch socket was, and I rounded up. And I believe this is a 5/8, whatever it was I had. Oh, actually it's 3/4. So it's going to be a 3/4 hole to be able to fit the socket. That's kind of weird, but that's the deal. And then I'm going to roto hammer just an 1/8 inch larger than the threaded rod, and then I'm going to do the Simpson epoxy. Right, so as you see, and I got this stuff that's actually better for water. This is an acrylic base. The other one's an actual epoxy, but it's just wet today, so I'm gonna use this instead. And I got a new gun for it. My tool's gonna get a little bit wet, but it ain't the first time. It ain't be the last time either. So that's the plan right now. First, I'll make some marks, pull this down. I'm gonna probably drill the concrete first, and then get the bolts to depth and everything. So this column is a little more square. So what I'm actually going to do is 4, 16, 24 and 36. So that'll be easier rounder numbers. You can see it's just got a little more of a consistent gap. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the roto hammer set up right now. All right, here's the roto hammer. It's working good. I'm going to this blue tape mark. That's gonna give me plenty of embedment on the threaded rod where I can epoxy it in. So I can't do it really well with one hand, but I'll show you a little bit. I'm trying to keep the bit relatively cool, so I'm dripping in the water so I don't soften it up and make it dull. Now I had piloted that hole already with a smaller bit, so it punched it right through. So I got to do that. I got those 4 drilled. This one is a little shallow because look, it's not, it doesn't go to the block, it goes to the mailbox. These I put through at a bit of an angle to get the threaded rod to go into the cinder block that's grouted solid with rebar in it and everything. So those will be a little tricky when I bolt them in because the stud will be coming out a little bit of an angle, but I don't really want this whole gate hanging just on the rock. I really wanted to get into the rebarred concrete part. So it's come along. Okay, and then as you can see, it's all wet because I just rinsed them out. So that's a critical step. If you leave all the dust in there, that epoxy is doesn't stick to dust structurally. So, and I'm not even dragging the water hose back out. I'm pumping it full right from this bottle and letting it run out until it's clean. Alright, continuing. So I did my depth measurements on these and I cut all these threaded rods and I'm just doing a test fit on them. So, you know, this one 3-foot piece can be more than enough. So some of the depth is like this. So, you know, I'm looking at 4, 5, 6 inches of embedment, especially, you know, on these ones I wanted all that 6. So that way I'm into the block. And when I was doing the roto hammer, I could tell for sure when I hit the block. It was granite, very hard, and then it was this grouty mix, pretty soft, and then when it hit the block, I went a ways into the block. So, you know, if I really wanted to, I could go longer, but, you know, I'm doing like a 7 on these, and it's going to be more than enough for all this gate. Now for that gate, I'm sure that those are in there 12 inches plus. But that's what I'm up to, so I'm going to do these ones over here now too. Here's a little visualization of what it'll be held up by, and I'm making sure that I give this plenty of thread to start the washer and the nut and everything, but it's just got to not be coming past the other side. So they're all pretty sweet, and those are fully set in. What I'm probably going to do is drill the holes in this and make sure I can get them landed right, and then I'm going to do the Simpson. I'll do the epoxy. Alright, so there's a good test fit. I'll have to do a few washers here, but pretty much no washers. Maybe a little washer there. I did the front holes as well, so those were to match the it was the 3/4 bit, so I get the 1/2-inch socket in there to tighten these nuts up once it's on. So this one's ready to go. I'm going to do the same thing over here, and then I may even drill into the slab right here for the bump stop. In fact, I probably should. That way I can open up this this Simpson adhesive and do all the bolts, do all the fasteners, glue them all in. So that one, I'm going to use this big 1/2-inch stainless steel specifically. That one being on the ground, it's going to be probably more likely to see any type of corrosion. This all thread here was zinc coated, and I couldn't get stainless steel nuts anyway, so everything is zinc coated. It's probably going to be pretty good. So repeat. So you can see, I'll do a pilot hole with a small bit. I'll do the main bit that's gonna be, it's two sizes, it's 2/16, or maybe 30 seconds. Yeah, it's 2/32. It's 1/16 bigger than the actual ball thread size. So I'm using an 11 30 seconds for the 5/16 all thread. And then on the front side, I'll do that big 3/4. Back to work in the rain. Alright, so all drilled, set, measured, blown out, rinsed out with water, blown back out with air. These ones I drilled and set the big 1/2 inch, or it might have been bigger, whatever size it was, stainless stuff. And I thought about it, and I'm not even going to anchor those into the concrete because they're a pretty tight fit. And, you know, in the case that I decide I want to slide this dumpster back more, it would be as simple as just pulling the wood off, pulling the studs out, and moving it back. The reason I'm thinking about that is I was kind of trying to keep the dumpster forward because, you know, if you really try to get around the backside, I could still see it. So the further forward it is, the more out of sight it is. But the more I realize, you know, if I have to put a little 3-foot section of white vinyl, I may do that, in which case I may want to move the dumpster a little further back just to give me more room in the front. So I'm not gonna epoxy those in. So let me show you how to do this. This is all clean, so I'm just gonna set this one aside. This one's gonna be an easy hole because it's shallow. So what I need to do right now, start pumping this. You'll see it's starting to come through and mix up. Of course, I can't get the focus right. So let me see what it looks like at the very end, because it's probably not quite going to be ready to apply. I need to get it to be a consistent color. Actually, that's good. It looks good. So, oops, get that drippy stuff out of here. So we go all the way in, and I'm just going to start squeezing. And as I do, pull out. And it's still found a little bit of dust on the outside, as I see right now. So I've got the hole filled. Just a little more. Let me set this down for a quick second. And I'm going to install the bolt. And I'm going to make sure I've got the bolt end that I've got nice and cleaned up in. So I'm spinning. And then this stuff, I should have grabbed some gloves. I'm going to get rid of that. Spinning. Okay, it just bottomed out. So all I'm going to do is just clean up a little bit of excess. Definitely should have grabbed I usually have my latex gloves, but because it was raining today, I'm not working out of my normal machine that's open. I'm working out of my truck. Just because I can put my tools inside and keep them a little more dry. Alright, so there's just one. I had to do that another 7 times, and then I'm actually going to hang the rail right on there because there's a little wiggle room in those bolts, so I might as well get it exactly where it's going to be and then deal with getting the nuts on tomorrow. Alright, gotta make this one real quick. So I cut the bottom of the vinyl exactly where I needed it. I put a little bead of this adhesive. I put a little bead in the channel. That's the PVC vinyl fence cement. And I gotta get this set real quick. It sets up pretty fast. Alright, there they are. Looks like that stuff sets up super quick. So this makes sense. They're pretty much right in line. They're crooked on the top, but by the time they're level on the top, this lower will slope just like how the ground did. So this should turn out really good. Alright, it's next day. I'm looking to wrap this project up, so I'm jumping on it early. I actually have to work later. So these things have been sitting here. The studs are all set up now, the all thread. So I'm going to start putting the nuts on, but I'm just going to give a quick look and say I'm going to start figuring out how many washers to put in there. Put a little stack and kind of get it flush. Once I get the washers making it flush, I'm going to start getting the lock washers and nuts on. And I brought a few different things. As you can see, we got a frost last night. A pretty substantial one for as far as here goes. So I got my little swivel universal type stuff for those ones that are at kind of an angle. So I'm gonna jump on that. All right, so that's the right amount of spacing. Definitely don't want to not have the washers, because if you do, this is going to bottom out here and you're just effectively going to be pulling the stud, which this Simpson is supposed to have like a ton of tension strength, but it's defeating the purpose if this metal bar doesn't hit against something right around the stud area. So now this is a pretty good visual of why I had to drill those outer holes to 3/4 just to fit the socket. And this is the thinnest wall socket I've got, 1/4 inch drive. So I really couldn't have gone any smaller on that front hole. And so I'm going to snug these up, not rocket science. And then I'm later going to come through with a brush and hit any of this bare metal. And then I've got 3/4 inch cap plugs to install. I really want to keep this long lasting. I don't want to do this job again. Let's check it out. The thing with these crooked studs is the only real practical way to get these in is to start with the whole bar crooked and then slide the washer on. And I found this magnet helpful. And then when the washer's on, go ahead and start the nut in a shallow socket that has a little shoulder down in there so it doesn't let the nut fall all the way in, which I'm not sure if cheapy tools have, but I work on cars, so I don't have really a whole lot of cheapy tools. And then I'm just going to line it up like this, and then I just got to kind of do it by feel. There's no way to finger start these. So the thing is, once I get this last crooked one set, I can straighten this bar out and start snugging these up. You know, in retrospect, I'm not sure that I would have done the crooked. I think in retrospect, you know, a professional who does this every day is going to look and say like, oh no, don't do it that way, because they can see forward and predict. Not so much for a DIY. So what I probably would have done is built this column and set this bar a little further towards the center where I could have landed it straight in the block without going crooked. That's probably what I would have done. So, learn from my mistakes. Alright, so with those in and tight, this thing is like super solid. Totally, you know, probably overkill. But, like I said, I'm going to do this job one time. I'd imagine most of the strain is going to be on that upper bolt, trying to pull due to the sagging. But I think it'll distribute pretty well through the whole bar. So, that's done. You know what I'm going to do right now? I've got the bumper all primed and dried. Pop the bumper in, shove the dumpster back, and then hang the gates. Alright, it's starting to look like something now. Here's the really cool thing about this gate. If you look, this one's a little low. So somewhere with, you know, my measurements or whatever, something got a little funky. But they're level, so here's the cool thing. If I wanted to lower this one down, all I'd really need to do is loosen up this little pinch bolt and slide it down. I'm leaning more towards bringing this one up. So all I'm really going to do is shim under some, you know, kick some 2x4s under there, get the gate sitting on the 2x4s perfectly level, and then, you know, then there'll be a big gap on the bottom of the hinge, and then I'm just going to loosen it, bring it down so it touches the hinge, tighten it, and then when I kick the 2x4s out, it'll be hanging right where it needs to be. So, you know, for a real gate fence, metal fence person, wrought iron person would just fabricated all this, and I'm sure they would have done an amazing job. But I am mostly thankful that I got the kit, because, you know, it came with some adjustments that are a little more DIY friendly than welding it solid and then having to keep it that way. So let me do those adjustments and I'm gonna get ready for setting up that drop rod and the latch. So kind of a big jump for a video, but honestly, this part of it went much quicker than the rest, you know, all the heavy setup. So first, let me talk through kind of what I did. Drop rod. I bolted the drop rod up to the frame first, so that way I know 100% where it's going to be. And then I just let the drop rod fall a few times till it left a mark, and then I roto hammered just a little bit bigger in there. back. Let me open it up. Oops, next level. Open it way up here. So then I also did the corner-to-corner tension cable. So this hooked in here. The cable was already attached to a hook here, and did the little crimp. And then I just tightened it up a hair. Most of this, frame is so solid. I don't know that that's really necessary, but it's the same on both sides. I still have to get the plugs and do a little touch-up. And then as for actually getting the vinyl on, and I guess that kind of was a little bit of a pain. The vinyl has to get bumped. I guess the furthest it can come over is bumped right up to the latch. So I was anticipating being able to close it off a little more, but because it hits the latch here, that's it for that side. And then as for over here, it can only go right just before this line. And the reason why, it's not really the stone that's the clearance. It's actually the vinyl to that metal rail. So if you see, when it's open, it gets pretty close. So I actually could have left it, maybe a quarter of an inch longer. But before I had the vinyl a little bit too long, it was hitting against this rail. So it's not what I wanted to do, but I did just trim the vinyl so it has kind of an open end, but it still feels strong. So I think the more meticulous thing to do would be to disassemble the slats and probably cut the inner and then put the slat back in so it's got a closed end. But I gotta really say, coming up to it, I don't really notice it. So once I got that stuff worked out, and I did have to do some trimming, like here, I had to cut that support back, and here, and a lot of little fitment stuff, and then I just hung it on the top, because these are leveled, and this has never been removed, so I might as well just hang them right on the top and use that as the level. And that's mostly, what I had to do in just bolt the latch up. I thought about welding the latch and the striker in, but I don't think it's a good idea, because if anything ever happens to this latch, at least I can unbolt it really quick. So similar on this one. This is literally as far over as it can go. You'll see if I open it all the way, boom, it touches. So that basically limits it. But unfortunately, again, it was just a little too wide, so I did have to cut this edge. But again, I still like it. I think it still looks good. So what it would have taken, I believe, was disassembling all these slats and then cutting this inner edge, or maybe doing it on this one. But I kind of thought about the practicality of it, and the thing is, I really need to finish this today, and I'm not unhappy with how it turned out. So from a distance, you can see it. I haven't cleaned it up. From closer up, you can see it. And I mounted the two handles. That was not part of the kit. And honestly, I'm happy with how this turned out. Oh, I did overlap this a little bit off the edge, so that way I could keep a pretty narrow gap. Otherwise, I would have had like a little bit over an inch gap right here. So I did do that little bit, kind of custom. And I mounted the panels with these black screws, just because they were already coated. So I'm not worried about them rusting over time. And I think the little black detail, I feel like, makes it look pretty good. So that's more or less done. I'm going to clean it up, maybe do one little quickie. Alright, so I'm calling it good. The only thing I may run into is coming up the road. If you're really far over, you can kind of see around the back side of it. You can see this is like, a car wouldn't really be here. A car would more realistically be maybe over here, and you can catch a quick glimpse. So if that's a problem, what I'll do is I'll get another section of the vinyl, I'll anchor to here, I'll set a post there in concrete, and I'll do a 3-foot vinyl section. But in the meantime, I don't know that that'll be an issue. So there's the finished product, getting dark, all cleaned up, touch-up is done. Painted the caps white. I redid these other caps while I was at it. That's why it's so dark. I thought, hey, if I'm going to bust out the masonry paint, I'm going to do them all. So this is how it turned out. I'm pretty happy with it. And opening close is perfect too. Easy. Both of them. Very easy. Bingo. So, done deal.